Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Silmarillion fic by Aeolian Sands called The Rescue Party, Chapter 24. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. Chapter 24, Fëanor and the Gondolindrim. Give me a vein, I'll give you some cold. Way on the tunneling road. Dirt on my brow, but steel in my soul. Way on the tunneling road. Picking up ore and we're picking up speed. Minus much as the smithies need. Sweat and blood gonna mine my way. All the way from Gondolindrim. Working all night trying to make up time. Way on the tunneling road. Ain't nothing gonna stand in the way of our mine. Way on the tunneling road. Picking up ore and we're picking up speed. Minus much as the smithies need. Ain't no slave, but we slave away. All the way from Gondolindrim. Roxas days the pace. Way on the tunneling road. We'll make two for the look on his face. Way on the tunneling road. Spare no quarter and we'll spare no elf. Way on the tunneling road. Spray I don't mind it all myself. Way on the tunneling road. Picking up ore and we're picking up speed. Minus much as the smithies need. If I should fall, leave me where I lay. On the tunneling road of Gondolindrim. Egelmoth watched highly amused as Fëanor finished belting out the last stanza of the workman's song with the rest of the Rogue's people. His upper tunic and shirt had vanished. His hair had at some point been braided into a single braid down his back, but wild, sweat-soaked strands were now falling out all over the place. When the former king turned around, he was grinning so madly that Egelmoth feared for the remnant of Fëanor's sanity. Fëanor shouted. I can't feel anything. My back muscles. I think they're screaming. But, look at all the mithril we've mined. Egelmoth stared at the ore cart behind him, filled with glistening mithril ore. Sure, it was impressive, but it wasn't anything he hadn't seen before. Rogue's house had earned its reputation after all. He's a good miner, Gleaming Asses, but he may need help getting up in the morning. The blonde elf called Essig laughed as he looked up, fine rock dust covering half of his smiling face. Rogue came over and punched Fëanor in the shoulder. One of ours! He winked at the Lord of the Heavenly Arch. And you ain't taking him. Egelmoth chuckled. You can have him. I just came to deliver some herbs. These are muscle relaxants. Oh, this we will need, replied Essig as he reached for the small packets in Egelmoth's hands. Rogue smiled in his slightly predatory way. Always a quick thinker, Lord Egelmoth. I know you know mining even better than us in some ways. What you say you join us? Egelmoth looked around at the sweating, overly enthusiastic band of miners. He recognized a tinderbox about to spark when he saw one. If I'm so wise, then I know to politely decline, he replied. Then he shook his head. Turkon's plan to distract Nara from escape is working, perhaps a bit too well. Tomorrow morning at dawn, the council will meet. Please be there, both of you. We wouldn't dream of missing it, though Penlot might wish for our absence, Rock added, swinging an arm around Fëanor's shoulder. But good thing it isn't till morning. Means we have all afternoon. Rock turned to his people. That's it, pack it up, boys. Work day is ending. Let's welcome our new friend properly. Loud cheers erupted from the cavern. Egelmoth, would you join us for some revels and refreshments? Rogue, it is barely 3 in the afternoon. The spirit of fire is no man. He needs time to drink his fill. Just don't kill him. Do you have no trust in me? Egelmoth turned to look at Fëanor, who was still smiling under Rogue's arm. Good heavens, I changed my mind. This is, in fact, a terrible plan. I don't care if it's temporarily effective. I trust you, Lord Rogue. I just don't trust the two of you together, he replied before taking his leave. It was called the Stricken Anvil Inn, and Fëanor learned that the establishment was run by Urlug, the Lady of the Hammer of Wrath. She's not like your older Eleths, Sarek explained as they walked towards the small building on the edge of the city. Seeing as her name translated to Fire Dragon, Fëanor had little trouble believing it. although there were indeed times where Nirnel was a fiery dragon herself. As they approached, they saw that the inn was made of white marble like the rest of the city, yet the stones were flawed. Instead of gleaming pure white like the palace and other structures of Gondolin, they were crisscrossed with mineral veins and small fractures. "Aye," Essig said, catching Fëanor's eye as he appraised the architecture. "The stricken anvil is scarred like us, but I tell you the truth. There be no powers that stand a chance at breaking that building. If Gondolin falls, the stones of the stricken anvil will stand still." Fëanor wasn't exactly convinced, but he nodded and strode through the swinging doors to the inn. Already various miners and workers of Rolk's house were striking up loud conversation, drinking great mugs of strange golden liquid. In the back, a group was throwing axes at a wooden target. "What is that drink?" Fëanor asked. "Oh, I forgot you only consume the blood of your enemies. That, Gleaming Eyes, is a damn good brew. It's called miner's sweat. Dwarves and men make something similar and call it beer, but it is hardly the same." "Sarek, who you be insulting now?" Fëanor looked up to see an elf with chiseled features behind the bar. Her black hair was held in tight braids, while two pale scars crossed her clouded left eye. "No, Urlog. Have you met Fëanor, the king of the Noldor who waged war on Morgoth?" "A pleasure, Nolda. An enemy of that demon's is a friend of mine. You thirsty?" "Yes," Fëanor answered as he took a seat, realizing how dehydrated he was from the day's work. "A large one for the spirit of fire!" Urlog smiled, turning to grab 2 mugs of the golden liquid, which she proceeded to slam on the counter with the force of a blacksmith hammering horseshoes. Some of the beverage swashed on the wood, but the elf did not seem to mind. "Here's to the death of the enemy!" Essig called, reaching for one of the glasses. Immediately, cheers went up through the establishment. Fëanor grabbed the second mug and clinked it with that of the blonde elf. He smiled, although it quickly faded as he tasted bitter, rich liquid that was so unlike the wines of Tyrion. "It tastes like life," Essig said, noticing the twisted expression on Fëanor's face. "First taste may not be pleasant, but you learn to love it fast." "Ain't that the truth?" someone echoed from one of the booths. Fëanor paused for a second. He glanced around the inn, noticing an arm wrestling match in one of the corner, an axe throwing competition at the back, becoming something fierce, and how friends were shouting, bantering, and bawling. The double door swung open then, and Rock entered, wearing a shirt at last, but no circlet or other sign of his position. "If I may request another of your finest, Lady Urlog," he called to the approval of everyone. Fëanor set his mug down on the bar counter. "What did you say?" he asked Essig in a quiet voice. Nothing. Are you drunk already? You had 1 sip." "No, don't be moronic like a certain brother of mine. No, you said something about life." "That you learn to love it? This you know, friend, you who broke the chains of death to live again." Fëanor's mind flashed back to the scenes from long ago, when he was in the midst of some creative pursuit. When he was riding with Nirnel to the borders of the known world. Yes, he once knew well the joy of living. Yet that joy, the joy he saw on the ruined faces of so many, it had left him at some point. Suddenly, Fëanor felt stabbing rage. Moringotta took it. Took it when he took the life of Atta. Anger seeped into his heart. How could these people still pretend to be gleeful? Was he an equal fool? Had he not felt happiness when he was singing those damnable mining songs? When he was teasing his brothers? Yet what right had he? What right had any of them to be happy now? "I know that look." Fëanor looked up to see Urluk glancing down at him, one hand on her hip. "That's the look I had after Angband. The look of one of us who lusts for revenge. But desire alone won't satisfy you. You will never defeat the enemy if you let him into your head like that." "He isn't in my head." Urluk was unfazed by Fëanor's half-growled sentence. "He isn't? Well, tell me this, Nolda. If Morgoth took from you your joy, then why do you continue to let him do so, Why not reclaim it?" Fëanor's eyes widened for a moment, but before he knew it, Rock was slapping him in the back. "Don't let her scare you. She's always been a bit, well, frighteningly accurate with reading minds. Come, let's see how good your aim is." Fëanor allowed himself to be led before a target and accepted the axe handle that was thrust into his hands, though he felt like one in a daze. The sound of an axe head hitting wood jolted him from his thought. "Rock strikes a bullseye!" someone shouted. The Cinder Lord winked at Fëanor. The former king smiled weakly and, twirling the axe in his hand, let it fly. The head cleaved the wooden board where it hit just off the center, splinters flying across the room. "Now we see the might of Fëanor!" Rock shouted, "and yet his accuracy is still not quite right. He cleaves the arm of the Balrog, yet leaves the head," he proclaimed, throwing another axe straight into the bullseye. Fëanor frowned. His aim had been a little off. Of course, he was a swordsman first. He snarled, fighting to clear his head. Then he imagined Morgoth's fairer form in front of the target. Shouting, he chucked the iron axe straight towards the fallen Vala's forehead, but it tilted off target and missed completely, embedding itself into a nearby pillar. "Whoa, my friend, easy!" Rock shouted when he easily tossed his final axe for his third and final bullseye. Fëanor felt a seething frustration rise within him. He should be able to hit a simple target. It wasn't even that far away. With two hands now, he flung the axe through. This time, it only hit the outer ring. "I'm no axeman," he mumbled, "and my shoulders feel like they're made of lead, and everyone is smiling too brightly in this time of war." "He just hasn't had enough to drink yet," Zedek shouted. "Another round!" Fëanor walked back to the bar and took a few gulps of the miner's sweat. It did little to relieve the gnawing anger that had taken root in his breast. "It wasn't because he lacked skill," Odalok said. "I am named Gondolindrim," he snapped. "It was because you let this rage consume you and your pride condemn you. Continue to do that, and the enemy will win every time." "I don't see you out there fighting the enemy." "We will. The Hammer of Wrath has always known its destiny, and we will face it with our friends at our side. We will not fall alone with nothing but our wrathful bitterness and our miserable sorrows like the kings of Noldor." Fëanor could have hit her. Instead, he hastily downed the rest of his beer before standing and leaving. He did not look back, making for the distant hills. How dare that woman tell him how to live? And she's not the first. Egelmoth, too, is an annoying prick in my side. He was quarter of the way across the plains of Tumladen when he looked at the towering mountains. You know, it wouldn't be that hard to scale them. The rock face is sheer with sections covered in ice, but crafting a weight-bearing ice pick at the smithy shouldn't be an issue. I can even make the head out of mithril. Don't even think it. Fëanor turned around to see that golden-haired half-funny menace behind him. "Think what?" he hissed at Glorfindel. "You were thinking of scaling the mountains. The archers you abandoned to the ice will take great joy shooting you off the rock face. It would be quite funny, but it's probably not how you want to return to Mondos." "Glorfindel, I remember you. The child who was first to jump off the Kalakiria, thus ensuring that all my sons also did so. Of course, Tuelko went head first and nearly snapped his neck." "I remember you diving off the same platform many times." Fëanor huffed, remembering the old cliff diving spot outside Tirion. "I wasn't 10 like twins were that first day. A fact your wife reminded me of quite loudly when she dragged me back to my mother by the ear. I have grown up since those days, however, which is why I'm not currently plotting an ill-advised escape up an ice wall. Did you not get along with Lord Rog?" "Rog is the best of you. But he still sits here doing nothing." Glorfindel narrowed his eyes. He then reached out and squeezed Fëanor's sore shoulder in a crushing grip. "Ow! What the hell?" Fëanor cursed as he twisted and wrenched the hand off of him. "If Rog was doing nothing, you wouldn't be so sore." "As I said, he's the best of you. And yet all of you sit here while the battle is outside. Then you have the gall to tell me not to fight alone? Maybe I am the only one left who wants to fight. Maybe I was the only one who ever did." Glorfindel laughed. If that was true, King Nolfilmer would not have challenged Morgoth. "My brother is a fool. I see it runs in a family. Fëanor bristled. That's treasonous thinking. It's an observation, but for all what's worth, I agree with you. We shouldn't have fought in Bragolach. Rock nearly sent a warhammer through the council table when he learned that we would not help our kin. Ecthelion had to restrain me from punching the wall. Thought without action leads nowhere. Acting alone leads to capture and death. When Gondolindrim is ready, we will be a host to behold. You all talk of future that might never come, Fëanor replied before turning on his heel. Can these cowards learn to leave him alone? It wasn't long before he had found the forge. It was unlocked and unsupervised. Not bothering to see what herbs Egelmoth had grabbed, or to read the healer's instructions, he swallowed 2 entire packets. Then he ignited the fires, tore the hammer off the wall, and got to work. Nerdanel quietly opened the door to the main forge of Nargothrond. It was separate from the rest of the city, located on the other side of the mountain near the surface where the fumes and smoke could easily be vented into the open air. She stared in silent awe as a young elf hammered a blade into shape. Tepe, you've grown so tall. Truly her grandson was not an elfling any longer. His muscles rippled as he worked, a few strands of long hair escaping their confining ponytail. Tepe, how's the blade coming along? A familiar voice asked, and Nerdanel couldn't resist smiling any longer. Gorofin strode into view, looking like a mirror image of his father. It's almost finished, Celebrimbor answered. I'll leave it to you to design the hilt. Nonsense, this one's all yours. Finder rather likely thinks my hilts are too plain. You're far better at embellishments than I. Embellishments? My son, are you an older or not? Jewels are far more than simple embellishments. There's a difference between beauty and gaudiness. Gaudiness? That's a Sindarin word, is it not? And yet it passes your lips. Celebrimbor shrugged. It is. Did you know the direct translation would be like the Noldor? Offensive grey elves, Gorofin muttered. Thingol is a hypocrite. Maybe Lord Girdan truly has no taste, but Greycloak himself sits on a throne of gold. I would assume he would prefer silver, his song answered as he finished the last swing with the hammer. Gaudiness, Nerdanel spoke, trying out the foreign word. You know, it is a necessary adjective. I quite like it. I've seen many artists ruin fine sculptures by adorning the subject with far too many gems. Amille! Gorofin shouted. How are you here? Oh well, your father, he's up to no good. Nerdanel found herself crushed in a hug. Easy, Kurva, she laughed, returning the embrace. You'll destroy what's left of my tunic with all that soot on your arms. I've never known you as one for vanity, Gorofin laughed. But Amille, I thought he's dead. You must know. He was dead, Kurva. Then he came back. I followed him here. Now he might be dead again, though I think not. Now, Tepe, let me get a good look at you. Celebrimbor shuffled shyly over. By Manwë, you're taller than your father. Well, that isn't too difficult. He shrugged. Hey! Kurva shouted. All right, give me a hug, Nerdanel ordered, and Celebrimbor happily obliged. Amille, what do you mean about father? He was released by Mandos already? Where is he now? No, the fool escaped with your uncle, I might add, but in the woods he was captured by a fallen Maya. Gorofin's face drained of color. Then he's lost once more, and we're stuck dealing with Nolofinwe's arrogance. Nilfinwe's case is not one Morgoth might allow to happen again. Peace, my son. Findarava has called a council tonight. Everyone is to be there, and we will plan a way to rescue your father and put an end to this war. Gorofin huffed. Findarava will lose his life if he thinks he can play the hero, and so will you. Then he will need you to ground whatever plan we come up with your sound logic. No one has ever called my Atha's logic sound before, Celebrimbor noted. It's not, Nerdanel winked at her grandson, but if he thinks so, then he should have the opportunity to speak his mind. I'm right here! And dirty and in need of a shower. Hurry up! Chop chop! She's a slave driver, Gorofin whispered to his son. I heard that! Nedna shouted as she disappeared down the hallway, smiling to herself. It was good to see her sons again. Now just to get to the eldest, the youngest, and her fool of a husband all back together again. Findagano stared at his sister in shock as she sat across the table from him and peeled an orange. Yes, she had mentioned being married, she had mentioned returning to life, but somehow the full story had taken some time to hit him. Wait, Iris, to summarize. Father escaped with Uncle Fëanor. He did. And now Mandos let everyone else out? Just Aikanaro, Angarato, Elenue, and Telofinue. And Aracano? Oh, well... You forgot about our brother? I never saw him. I think he was hanging out with grandfather a lot. Truly? Well, he was the first to die. It would have been boring for a while. Rumor has it that he even began talking with a Maya. A lady Maya. Findagano pinched the bridge of his nose. Trust Aracano to go woo some holy being. Alright. So everyone is returning. Even if not invited, we can assume our little brother will show up at some point. He has never been one to miss out on the action. Is this the end of days? Who is your husband? Where has Torokano been this whole time? Adel dropped an orange slice in her mouth. Mandos just get tired of us, she explained with a shrug. It's the end of Morgoth's days, that's for sure. But I need to find my son first. Your what? Oh yes, Finno, you're an uncle twice over now. Irise! I know, I would have told you sooner, but I could not. Toro would not let me leave a second time. A second time? Where even is he? Why did he not defend us in the flames? I promised not to tell, and I've learned to keep my promises. But I do intend to go back for my son. I won't slay you if I find you following, though Toro just mind if you find him and seek to return to this fortress of yours. I really don't believe Turokana would kill me. He's very serious about his rules. You almost killed Maghradze, didn't you? Circumstances and time changes everything. That was different. Not so different, I don't think. Both you and Turokana were trying to save someone else from pain. You thought death was the only way out for our cousin. Toro believes that absolute secrecy is the only way out for his people. So he will let us die fighting the enemy. He might. Findagano covered his face with his hands. And Maghradze? I don't know. I told you that. Okay, fair sister, he said, sitting up with a heavy sigh. I will search for our cousin. You're free to go to your son and Toro if you please. Tell our brother that I'm displeased with him and expect his support next time we wage war. It does make a poor image, Iris amused. If the king's brother won't even help him fight, at least the Fëanorians have that. Let me ride with you on the first leg. I have learned a lot about surviving outside the comforts of stone walls. If Nelio Finua is injured, I can help him. If you wish. We'll leave within the hour. The darkness brings great danger to all travelers. Ever the valiant one, she commented, plopping another orange slice in her mouth. Galadriel eyed her cousin from where she stood across the music room. She didn't like the idea of teaching a Kingslayer any new songs of power. Maghradze looked innocent, but Galadriel had seen him fight. For all of Gelagon's boasting and Kurofin's skill, they lacked the deadly speed and precision of their older brother. If she were to see the future, she would have thought of all of them it would be Makalaure still standing in the end. He was an elf that did not need to be made any more dangerous. Are you sure this is a good idea? She asked her mentor through Osanwe. It is, Melian replied simply. Maghradze himself didn't look so convinced. He was half hiding behind a grand harp with his arms crossed. Melian gracefully sat down on the piano bench in the center of the room. Makalaure, you are a gifted minstrel. How well versed are you in songs of power? I know healing, he declared. Good. Most start there. But he didn't say anything more. Melian sighed. What do you know of the Ainolindale? It's when the Ainur sang the word into being. Yes. The song is the fabric of creation. A true master of song, therefore, must be in harmony with creation and with the thought of Ilúvatar. That piqued Galadriel's curiosity. I thought Melkor was the mightiest singer of old, yet there is no harmony in him. Melian raised an eyebrow at that comment, then waved her hand. At once Galadriel found herself taken into a vision. Unfortunately, her cousin was there as well. They stood together on a high mountain overlooking vast forests broken by pale green valleys. Arien danced overhead, and the wind was gentle in their hair. Melian appeared and grabbed her hand. As long as she held the Maya's hand, Galadriel could hear the music. She heard the low voices of the pines muttering to one another, and even the deeper song of the rocks beneath the earth. The wind whistled, and the streams babbled on their own journey to the sighing sea. "It's alive," Maghradze muttered. "Of course. Song runs through us all." "Of course. Song runs through all of us. We have been given a great gift to hear it unaided. Now watch," the Maya ordered. An elven army appeared in the valley at the mountain's foot. The clanking of arms drowned out the voices of nature. Thunderous black cloud grew above, and from within its darkness, discordant laughter echoed off the mountains. Galadriel watched as dark things materialized out of the earth, twisted and ugly figures swathed in shadow. They made for the shining army, and Galadriel could hear shrill, ghoulish laughter. The two forces met, and the slaughter was quick. The dark cloud consumed the warriors as the laughter grew to hysterics. So painful was the noise on the ears of Galadriel that she was forced to cover them and grit her teeth against the screeching voices. "Make them leave. Leave. Go away," she muttered. She felt Melian's violet eyes on her. "The warriors have fallen already. Soon the trees will, then the streams, and then the earth itself," Melian said, but made no move to confront the darkness. "No, make it stop." Galadriel glanced once at her cousin, who held his head between his hands. Mercifully, Melian pulled them out of the vision. Both grandchildren of Fëanor collapsed on the music room floor, breathing heavily. "Artanis," Melian addressed, "what did you see?" Galadriel did not feel ready to answer the lady's question. "What did I see? I could barely think." Melian waited patiently for her to catch her breath. "I saw an army getting devoured by screeching shadows," she replied, hoping she didn't sound too sarcastic. Melian nodded in approval. "Yes, the shadows. Magalaure, you've led armies. Tell me about the shadows. Did you notice any weakness?" The look of disbelief on Maghrade's face was priceless. "My lady, perhaps you should have bargained for Maedhros. He would have noticed weaknesses while unholy voices drowned his fare." "Perhaps I should have asked for Maedhros, but Nama chose you. Answer the question, son of Fëanor." "I didn't see any weapons," he offered weakly. Melian reached for the flute hanging on the wall. Galadriel thought for a hopeful second that she was going to beat her cousin with it, but she simply slapped it against the palm of her hand. "Galadriel," Melian called on her other student. Clearly Maghrade's answer had been incorrect. "Iron hells." "Yes. Describe to me what you saw concerning the shadows." "Well, they appeared and—" Melian cut her off. "That's it." For a second, Galadriel was taken aback. Yet she wasn't about to study Gifted Diamond too closely. "See, cousin, that's it." But Maghradze had wandered to sit by the harp and wasn't looking at her. "The shadows appeared," Melian elaborated. "Maghradze says that they attempted to drown him." It was a figure of speech. The singer defended himself, but Melian waved him to be silent. Galadriel was feeling increasingly uncomfortable. It was clear she was supposed to say more. "Well, they were loud. I could not hear the song in the trees and the streams any longer," she tried. Melian nodded encouragingly. "Yes?" Maghradze plucked at a few strings of the harp. In the ensuing silence, he appeared to be deep in thought. For a long moment, no one said anything. "It is said," Maghradze began almost as if talking to himself, "that at one point during the creation of the world, many of the Ainur were dismayed and sang no longer, and Melkor had the mastery. And in the vision I could not hear the song either, or at the very best it was drowned out by the creatures, and the darkness had the mastery." Galadriel saw Melian smile. At once another vision enveloped them. Maghradze found himself this time in the valley, dressed in his full armor. He saw the same thundercloud growing and the same dark creatures as before crawling out of the ground. The horrible screeching began anew, and the beautiful melody of the forest rescinded. No. He knew what he must do. The power was there in the earth and in the waters. Melian asked what the weakness of the darkness was. It had no root. It could scream and yell and defeat armies, but it could not defeat the entire forest, the entire land itself. It could not take the rocks and the mountains and the winds. Maghradze closed his eyes and reached for the fading melody, adding his own voice. Sing, trees of Beleriand. Stay and sing with more for your home. Stay, waters of the east. Maghradze let his voice fly and attempted to match the harmony he had heard previously. For a moment, he felt something move and leap inside him. Was this that spiritual power the Melian had mentioned? The strength that Nalmo had given him? The darkness recoiled in response to his voice. Then the laughter grew louder. A shadow orc-like creature came before him.
Ha!
It taunted.
You think your voice can save you now? Pathetic!
It brandished a scimitar and swiped at Maghradze's side. Immediately, instinct took over and the elf lord reached for his dual swords. He blocked the blow, only to notice something particular. Wrapped around the scimitar's hilt was a lock of red hair, adorning the weapon like a trophy. Maghradze saw red, and forgot all about the song he had been singing. He hacked at the shadow and screamed. Beneath the weight of his cry, the earth and vision shattered. As he fell, he saw Galadriel and Melian watching from the crumbling high mountain. When Maghradze remembered to breathe again, he was standing in the music room once more. Melian was frowning. This is why I need to learn to let go, she said. But you did well. We learned something today. She turned to look at Galadriel. There is forgotten power in Beleriand, Finarfin's daughter answered slowly. The song of creation echoes still, though Morgoth strives to silence it. Yes, and every day Melkor taints more of the land, but there is still much that is fair. My hope is that the wind will be your messenger and the trees your defense. The rocks will answer your cry and the animals race at your side. This is not just a war of the elves. Every piece of Beleriand fights for survival against the corrupting darkness, but their voices have gone unheard. The land needs a leader, someone to carry its song. It needs you, Maghradze, the one who has accidentally, or not, gained the power of an Elelan. It needs you, Artanis, one strong in foresight to guide all people. Maghradze looked at his cousin. Galadriel's expression was a mix of awe and residual disgruntlement about the shared responsibility. Melian laughed. I'm sure you kids can learn to work together. Now it's about tea time, and I am never late for that. Maghradze, I ask you to practice meditating. Close your eyes and clear your mind. If you are to become a great singer, you must not let emotions get to you like what happened today. End of chapter 24. Stay tuned.